we don't have to ask you this, but do you Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Becky Widish, Chairman of the Niagara County Legislature. Thank you for joining us today live on LCTV for our daily Niagara County COVID-19 update. We're also currently streaming live on lctv.net and on 90.9 FM on your radio if it's easier for you to catch us that way. I'm joined today by Niagara County District Attorney Caroline Wojtasek, who's here to answer some questions for us about her office. But first, unfortunately, I have to start today's show with some very sad news, as Niagara County has received confirmation of its first COVID-19 related death. This was a 58-year-old male with no underlying health condition. All of Niagara County sends our condolences and our prayers to his friends and family in this time of grief. We've seen COVID-related deaths across the state, the country, the world. But when someone from our own community is lost, it really hits home. To the family, please know that we all stand beside you in your time of grief, and we're here with you with our thoughts and prayers. Today on Governor Cuomo's live update, he gave the new numbers for New York State. There are currently 138,836 positive cases in New York State. That remains to be about just under half of all of the positive cases for the country. He tells us there are 17,493 hospitalizations with 5,489 deaths statewide. In Niagara County today, we see 13 new positive cases for a total of 143 to date. 102 positive individuals are in isolation. 86 of those are isolating at home, and 16 are in hospital isolation. The good news is 41 people have recovered and are doing well. Our Niagara County heat map is now updated. That breaks those cases down by municipality, and you can see that we continue to trend as positive cases rise higher in the densely populated areas with fewer cases out along the lakeshore communities. Of course, as we've said again and again, this virus is everywhere. The governor today in his update continued to be cautious that we might be plateauing in terms of hospitalizations, critical care, and deaths, but that's far from certain. Community spread is still a very real scenario and threat, so please continue, have that little bit of optimism. Know that the state believes that they might be plateauing in the downstate area, but it remains to be seen over the coming days. And hope that we can return to normal in the near future. We lost a neighbor today to COVID-19, and I ask you again, please use that as a reminder that no one is immune from this virus. Again, this was a 58-year-old male with no underlying health conditions. You should take that again as your warning that no one is potentially, really safe from this, that everyone can be affected, not just you, but again, you can bring that home to your family members as well if you're not following those physical distancing guidelines. So please, until this crisis comes to an end, continue to do so and keep yourself and your family safe. As I said, I'm joined today by Niagara County District Attorney Caroline Wojtasek. Caroline, there's certainly social consequences that involve your office during this time, such as domestic violence. You've been involved prosecuting domestic violence cases for the better part of your career, but it's not just about physical abuse, right? Domestic violence is more than that. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me on. First, I want to express my condolences to the family of our community member. It's devastating to hear. It's an eye-opener for all of us that this could happen to someone who's young and who doesn't have underlying conditions. And it certainly, I hope, will scare everyone enough to follow the pause order by our governor. But going to your question, yes, I have to say during this time of isolation and social distancing, there are a lot more stressors on families and households. In addition to just being together and feeling sometimes cooped up and dealing with the stresses of homeschooling in many instances and the loss of jobs, and the loss of income in a family just create a lot more stress. And we're seeing that. Our numbers have gone up here in Niagara County. I asked Sheriff Filicetti to look into it, and he did so. So from January of 2019 to the beginning of April of 2019, last year we had 674 cases. For that same time period this year, which includes, the social distancing of the last few months, we had 773 domestic violence cases. So they've gone up just shy of 100 extra cases in this short period of time, which is extremely concerning, which is why I wanted to come on. And as you said, it's not just physical abuse, it's verbal abuse, it's emotional abuse, it's financial abuse, it's sexual abuse, and it can be animal abuse. So it takes a lot of forms, and when you add stress to people's lives and isolation, this can happen. But I'm here to not only just kind of alert the community that this is going on and at a higher rate. I mean, in our office, we're still conducting arraignments in court, and we're seeing nearly half of every day's arraignments domestic violence cases.
Okay. So if someone feels that they themselves or a family member, a friend has been victimized in a domestic violence situation, where do they turn? What do they do?
So what was important for all of our local agencies is that we maintain essential services. And that has been done here in Niagara County. And so what I don't want anyone in the community to think is that, society's closed down and those services have closed down, because that's just not accurate. A lot of our social service agencies have gone to great lengths to maintain a continuity of services to the best of their ability. For example, our shelters and our alternative housing still remain open. I'm going to give numbers. I want to give numbers to our public. The YWCA Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Hotline still remains open. That's 716-433-6716. And Pinnacle Community Services for Western New York has a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week domestic violence hotline, and they also have a shelter, and their number is 716-299-0909. Those services remain open, as well as our domestic violence advocates through the Y. We also have advocates through our Sheriff's Department. So you're not alone. If you are experiencing any sort of domestic abuse, please reach out. If you have a friend, please let them know that there are alternatives to being in the house and experiencing this with no help.
Thank you. And so we had Sheriff Filicetti on last week, and he talked about, just as you just did, about overall crime rates being down at this time because people are home, they're not out as much, but you're seeing that uptick in domestic violence. Yes. Beyond domestic violence, though, certainly crime hasn't gone away completely. No. So how are you handling that other work in your office with your staff? How is that being done safely at this time?
So our office is considered essential services, so we do remain open, of course. And as you said, I mean, the good news is crime overall has gone dramatically down, which helps, because I have to thank our law enforcement. They are still out there every day doing their job, and all the emergency services are just doing an amazing job. So I'm on with the county every day for our conference call, but I'm also on with law enforcement and all of our chiefs and the New York State Police and our Parks Police every single day, getting updated. And yes, it has gone down. But our office, in conjunction with law enforcement, we're still working with Child Protective Services. We're still working on investigations in coordination with law enforcement. Certain measures are being taken, certainly by law enforcement, to reduce contact with society so that they don't contribute to the spread or get COVID-19 themselves. In our office, we are maintaining staff there at all times to answer the phone. So that's another place at our number, 439-7085, the district attorney's office, that people can reach out to get connected to services as well. So we have someone there during business hours manning the phones. We all personally, so I have 22 assistant district attorneys. We all personally have had our work phones forwarded to our home phones, so we can take calls as normal as we go through this. Everyone has a laptop. They are home for the most part, but they have access to all of our files. All of our files have been digitalized and are in our case management system, so they have access to that. We do show up on appearances in court daily. So we have people on call that are responsible to get the new cases, the new arraignments that come in every day. And we just started on Monday appearing remotely. Prior to that, we were actually appearing in court. But that situation, has really gotten, I think, more and more unsafe as we continue to see numbers rise in Niagara County. So we've gone completely remote. We're doing it through Skype, and essentially the defense attorney, the assistant district attorney, and the judge and the defendant are all Skyping from various locations, and that happens daily. So we are conducting business, and we've all, I think, gotten creative at how to do that. One thing I do want to talk about is that my office, we had a staff meeting to the best of our ability via Zoom last Friday. And what's important to me is that our office still reach out to victims of crime, because it is still happening, particularly on the domestic violence cases, and connect them up to victim advocates, because they are on call. They're still working through the sheriff's office. And I don't want people to think that their cases are getting lost in the system because they happened during this period of time. That's simply not the case. We are getting every new case that's coming in. Mind you, it may be postponed before they get their first court appearance until after this crisis has subsided slightly. But we can still have our assistant DAs reach out to those crime victims and crime witnesses and let them know, we're here for you. We want to hear what you have to say. We will still seek justice in your case.
That is very reassuring to hear. Thank you. I know for many of the departments in the county, and I thank yours, like I have with the others, for just continuing to be creative, like you said, using that technology and finding new ways quickly to adapt to the situation that we're in. And that is something that's been happening daily. I'm in contact with the court system myself, so I've seen the changes that have happened day by day as you use those new ways of keeping in touch with your cases and not letting anything slip by, because again, you are essential. This is something that has to keep going on even through this crisis.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that hard work. We've talked a little bit on the show. The governor talks about the New York pause and the efforts to keep everyone home, to keep everyone safe, to follow those physical guidelines of staying distant from each other, no gatherings, all of the businesses that are closed. We talked to the sheriff a little bit last week about enforcement of those rules. Are you seeing calls in your office as well from individuals who are concerned about people that are maybe out and about that shouldn't be, or doing things that they shouldn't be? And how do you coordinate with our law enforcement?
Yeah, so first I want to really praise everybody in Niagara County, because the vast majority of people are doing their civic duty and doing what they have to do, staying home, staying safe, distancing from people, even during very, difficult times. There's a lot of milestones that happen during this period of time, a lot of canceled parties, but people are doing what they have to do to stop the spread of this virus. But there are also individuals, there's always individuals or companies that are not following the rules, and that's significant, and that's something we're going to take very seriously. So we've looked for guidance on how to handle it. I think we received probably the best guidance recently from the governor and from the Department of Criminal Justice Services. Essentially, we are going to go, our law enforcement is tasked with this duty. And let me go back. Yes, we do get complaints, but just so people understand, we're not an investigative office. Law enforcement does our investigations for the most part. So when we get a complaint, I forward that to the appropriate law enforcement agency to handle the investigation, of whether or not someone is actually, or some business is actually in violation of the pause order. Then what happens is law enforcement's been tasked with going and trying to speak with that particular individual or that particular business to say, you cannot do this, there are repercussions to this. I'm sure a number of people have heard already that the governor has upped the fine to $1,000. He's taking it seriously, and it progressively gets more and more steep, the financial fines, as you continue to ignore our warnings. So first we provide a warning, we ask you, we tell you to please shut down whatever business so that we don't spread the virus. Then we will proceed through the civil sanctions first, but ultimately, and we can make a criminal arrest if businesses continue, owners of businesses continue to defy our warnings, the sanctions, and our order. So we can charge with obstructing governmental administration criminally. What I've said to law enforcement, we talk about this every single day. I know they're out investigating, unfortunately, some businesses now. They will talk to me before making a criminal arrest to let me know kind of the progressive steps that they've done to try to shut a business down in compliance with the order. But we will ultimately make bring criminal charges if we have to.
Thank you. Caroline, thank you again for being here with us today. I think it's, again, reassuring for the public to hear that your office still is very much up and running, working and taking care of the residents every way that you can right now, because we need you to be there. So please pass along my gratitude and thanks, not just from myself, but from the legislature and, of course, all of our residents in Niagara County, to the rest of your staff for everything that you're doing right now for us.
Thank you. I'm very proud of our office.
You should be. Thanks. I did receive a question from one of our viewers that I'd like to address. They're asking if, we're hearing of these new promising treatments that are being worked on right now for the COVID patients, and will we be trying some of those here in Niagara County? I think it's a good time to remind people that our health departments are certainly on the front lines of public health. Niagara County does not have its own lab for testing. And in many ways, we really are an arm of New York State. So any trial, whether it's new drugs, testing, and so on, that would come through the state, it really would ultimately be a state decision as to whether or not we were able to participate in those. Of course, our health department is always paying attention to, listening to, and researching those new options as we hear about them. But please know that we will use those whenever available, of course, and we continue to watch for those developments just as you do. We're certainly anxious to try some of that new cutting-edge technology that's out there being worked on right now. We also continue to remind you that at this time, many folks are struggling. That's understandable. Everyone is home. You're not able to get out and socialize the way that you normally would. Again, we prefer to say physical distancing as opposed to social distancing. Very important to stay in touch with the individuals in your life on an emotional level and check in on each other. Make sure that you're doing okay. The Take 5 NY initiative is a wonderful one. You promise to take 5 minutes out of your day to connect with that person who maybe doesn't have a lot of connections, whether it's an elderly neighbor that doesn't have family around to help, or a coworker that maybe doesn't have a lot of outside friends other than those at work and might be struggling. Please reach out to those individuals. Take 5 minutes from your day to just make a call, say hello. It would be good for you as it will be for them. And if you are struggling, again, our crisis services line is always available to you through the mental health department. That's 24/7 free confidential helpline at 285-3515. If you or a family member or friend is struggling and you need some help with that, some advice, please don't hesitate to call them. We are currently live on LCTV through a wonderful partnership that we have been able to develop with them. We thank them again, of course, for their help during this time. And when people want to hear information, we want to be able to get that out to you. We also have been able to offer this live broadcast out to our local media stations, local TV stations, newspapers. They're able to use whatever information we give on this live show each day to keep you updated as well. So we thank you for all of those that are participating there. If you came in late today, don't worry. Our link will be up shortly on lctv.net on their on-demand page under the Niagara County Legislature. You can find a link for today's broadcast and rewatch it during the day. We will also post that link on our Facebook page for Niagara County. LCTV has also been wonderful about replaying our broadcasts throughout the evening as their schedule allows. So thank you again for joining us. We please remind you to follow those physical guidelines, stay home as much as possible, essential trips out to the store only, as few members of your family going out to do those things as possible, of course. Most importantly, stay home, stay safe, and stay healthy. Thank you.